Radio.com. Just here for the Beer Radio, sponsored in part by Gargoyles Bar and Grill. It's the home of $3 Mondays featuring draft beer and wings for just $3. Great food and friendly service in a casual environment. Gargoyles, 3357 West Broadway in Vancouver. Joe, Larry, and Colin Jack, the first show of 2011. And we're proud to welcome back to 2011 our initial sponsor from 2010. It is the good folks from Pacific Western Brewing. Ashton Byrne is a sales and marketing coordinator, and along with him, a popular personality in town, Ian Mulgrew, who we know and read daily in the Vancouver Sun, and now with Pacific Western Brewing support as well. Nice to have you guys here. How was Christmas and New Year's?
It was fabulous for me. We just had a great time. Lots of family. Grandchild was up from Houston, Texas, right. And so it was great. Food was fabulous, and the beverages were first rate.
Were those beverages brown and cold in nature?
Many of them were, in fact. Many of them were indeed.
Ashton, I want to ask you, in terms of the beer companies, is Christmas the bonanza? Is that what you really target for? I mean, I know that there's beer consumption year-round, but where does Christmas rank, or the Christmas season, I should say, in terms of beer consumption?
Well, to be honest, the beer consumption in Christmas definitely goes up, and that's obviously a great thing to see as a brewery. But in comparison to summer, obviously we're getting a little bit more sales in the summer, but the darker beers or the stronger beers, definitely like the TNT 8% that we have here today, definitely start to pull out and start to get the spotlight that they deserve.
So what we're seeing right now is we're seeing not a huge, as big as a dip that used to happen during the wintertime. It's more of an evening out. It does slow down a little bit during the wintertime, but it's coming, it's not as much as it used to. Ian, I had a look at the video earlier today about you, and I know that you guys are here to promote some TNT chicken that you were cooking on the video. Could you tell the folks a little bit about that?
Well, it's a very traditional beer can chicken, only we're using the TNT because it's a full-flavored beer, and it's got a little bit more caramely, a little more sweetness to it, and I think it works great with chicken. As far as I'm concerned, when you're talking about beer culture and cooking, it should be cooking without looking. And a beer can chicken is simple, it's easy to do, anyone can do it, and the chicken can cook while you're watching the game, and at halftime you're ready to eat.
I think that's one of the things about people when they're cooking, especially cooking with beer. You want to make it simple, you want to make it fun, you want to be cooking with the beer in your hand. And if you can make something easier like beer can chicken, it's really going to be one of those things that people can set and forget.
Absolutely right, and I think it's important to remember that beer is not only an ingredient, it's a timer.
Right.
When you're making a roux, it's 2 beers. And it'll turn out the best roux you've ever made. You'll get great gumbo. You'll get great New Orleans flavor from it.
One of the things that we've learned, and when we talked about when we first put the concept of a beer radio show together, is that beer is one of these really practical consumer items that has much more of a use than just any one thing. And you look at wine, and wine is always paired with food, and wine can be used in food. I don't think people really give enough credit to beer and the possible combinations and things you can do with beer.
And I think in many ways beer is actually a better accompaniment to food. And people are beginning, I think, as your last guest was mentioning, people are beginning to realize that. And the quality of the beers that we're getting from people like Pacific Western Brewing and the other craft brewers around the province, the range and flavors that we're seeing, you're now seeing people being able to pair, say, a really nice blue cheese with a nice ale. You're being able to see people bring out a nice Pilsner that will pair well with a crab salad. And that wasn't the case 10, 20 years ago.
Ian, could you let us know a few of the other things that you've been experimenting with and cooking with in the Pacific Western kitchen?
Well, what we're really going to be looking forward to doing is that when we bring out, they're bringing out a chocolate stout in the new year, and we're going to do a braised ribs dish with the chocolate stout and a little bit of espresso that'll knock your socks off. But we've done things like a Canterbury beer batter that I've got to tell you, if you've got some cod lying around the house and you want to make it just fabulous, better than Mr. Pickwick's, check out the website. Highly recommend.
Well, Ian, if I had cod lying around the house, I wouldn't be much of a housekeeper, would I?
Ashton, a couple of things. It must be really exciting to work with a company that's so aggressive and moving forward. You guys have changed so much in the last couple of years. How do you see the 2011 unfolding for yourselves?
Well, it's been great joining the PWB team or the Pacific Western Brewing team, and I think it really pays testament to the history, actually, instead of thinking about the future. For instance, the fact that we're still concentrating on being ISO 9001 or using pure spring water from the Caribou region. But moving forward, it's going to be a lot more aggressive marketing techniques, getting out there and interacting with the people who drink our beer, the end consumers, and for instance, getting out there and sponsoring sports teams just because, if you drink our beer, why shouldn't we sponsor your sports team? So there's a lot of really, really cool and interesting things that we get to do at PWB for our beer.
And of course, this year's the 20th anniversary. Could you tell the folks a little bit about that?
It is our 20th anniversary, and Kazuko Komatsu has been doing such a great job building the company to where it is now. So we just want to celebrate our success, and we want everybody to celebrate with us.
Cool. Ashton Byrne is the sales and marketing coordinator of Pacific Western Brewing. He's joined by Ian Mulgrew with we're calling you PWB support. Is that
Sure.
Is that fair? Now, Ashton, you brought us in a couple of chilled TNTs. What's TNT?
TNT is actually our stronger beers. It's a strong lager.
And it comes with the word caution on it.
It does come with the word caution. And I was actually talking to our brewmaster today, and he wanted to stress that it's an easily drinkable beer, and that's the thing with strong beers is that it could be caution, but enjoy it. And he likes to say that the drinkability of it is what makes it different from all the other 6% or 8% beers around there.
One of the things about high octane or high percentage alcohol is that often they don't ferment them for a very long time, so you get a real high sugariness, and it sort of sticks to your palate. The TNT, the 6%, quite smooth, pretty easy to drink. You get a little bit of maltiness in the finish, but it's very high in carbonation. It's quite smooth, and you don't notice that 6% alcohol.
Exactly. And Peter actually wanted me to also note that we actually like to keep it cold lagering for 2 months.
Right. That's an extended period of time. For folks that don't know, most beers are cold lagered for maybe 2-3 weeks.
Exactly.
I think it's good to remind people, if they're pairing beer and food rather, it's important to remember it's best to start with the lighter beers first, and then you move up to the heavier and the darker beers. And a beer like this is probably one you wouldn't want to start with unless you were going to stay with it through the whole meal.
Ian, well, I want to ask you, because you obviously you know your way around a kitchen with beer. What does the flavor profile change, or how does it change from, say, a lighter alcoholic content to a heavier beer?
Well, in much the same way that a white wine and a red wine differ, with your pilsners and your lighter beers, you want to pair them with seafood primarily. You want to pair them with vegetarian dishes. And with your heavier, your more robust ales and stouts, you can step up to your braised ribs, your meats and chilies, and a lot of your spice dishes like Thai food, for instance, really pairs well with some of the sweeter beers and ales. And so I think that's really what you're trying to look for in the flavor profiles.
One of the things people don't know about beer and food pairings as well is that the natural carbonation cleanses your palate, so you don't get that flavor. It actually helps you differentiate the flavor between the food and the beer, and it re-cleanses and renews your palate. If you ever go to a wine tasting, Joe, the first thing you should do afterwards, drink a beer to refresh your palate.
Done. Okay, that's the plan.
Absolutely, especially when you're talking about cheeses. People talk about wine and cheeses. I completely disagree. I say beer and cheeses, and you can get when you start talking about some of those bigger ales, some of the more complex ales, they really go well with some of the big cheeses.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because we've been talking all about the compatibility of beer and insert food name here, and obviously we've talked about beer and a number of meat dishes. You bring up cheeses. I know our next show we're going to be pairing beer with chocolates. I mean, when you think about it, it really is a pretty versatile beverage, isn't it?
Absolutely, and as everyone knows, food has no beer value, but beer has lots of food value.
Yes, excellent.
Wow, that's great. So, Ashton, again, TNT is available everywhere. Tell us what you mentioned earlier to Colin. What can we expect from Pacific Western Brewing in 2011? Any new little things on the drawing board now that we may see in the next 12 months?
Well, the big thing is our celebration, our 20th anniversary celebration, and then paired with that will actually be a concert series, which I cannot speak too much about.
Oh, is there going to be something you can maybe tease a little bit later on in the year?
let's just say it's going to be a bigger band. It's not going to be
Right.
any local band. It's going to be a big band.
A
Everybody's
big
going to
band.
know them.
Okay.
Nice.
And we're
Okay.
just working on that right now. So that's a little bit of the teaser that I can do. But again, it's all about supporting the end consumer.
And how can people
This
check
year.
you out? What's the website?
It's www.pwbrewing.com.
pwbrewing.com. Andrew Harris, or make that rather Ian Mulgrew from Pacific Western Brewing, and Ashton Byrne, the sales and marketing coordinator. Thank you so much for being part of Just Here for the Beer Radio.
Thank you.
Just Here for the Beer Radio, sponsored in part by the King's Head Tavern. The all-new King's Head, join them for Sunday brunch between 10 and 2. Made-to-order omelet bar from Spanish to Denver to Western. King's Head, not your typical pub fare. It's all new and improved on U Street in Kitsilano.